Neil mentioned, where does this come in, and how did it happen?
The question was about the New Yorker short story, and the that was sort of a weird. After the book was no longer a short story and it was finished, the New Yorker wanted to excerpt it, so we whittled it down to a short story again from the book. And that was an amazing editing experience on top of the editing that I was already doing for the novel, because I think that what the editor did was quite remarkable, because he trimmed it in parts so that it could stand on its own. Mm-hmm. And then he said to me, what do you think are the elements that it needs to really stand on its own? And then, the short story was removed from the novel completely, and I thought, well, forget the ending that's going to be in the novel, forget the deathless man, forget, the relationship between Natalia and the grandfather, because none of that applies here. It's a totally different so that was a great editing experience. I'm really glad I went through it. Yeah, that's how that went.
How did the New Yorker know about your book? That was before it was published.
It was before it was published. Well, my agent wanted me to publish something. Wanted me to publish something in the New Yorker, and they said, well, we don't know her, so send whatever she's got. And at the time, I had a couple of I had a couple of short stories already earmarked for publication, and then the novel, and they liked the novel, and that was wonderful for me. Thank you.
A mystery to your character, and certainly to your readers here, is the incredible amount of pathological violence in the breakup of Yugoslavia. I realize you left when you were 8 and you don't have any blood on your hands, but do you have any understanding of the ferocity of the violence that occurred?
I do. The question was about the breakup of Yugoslavia and the ferocity of the breakup and the violence. We were all, when I was small, my family did the best they could to shelter me from what was going on at the time, because there was this notion of, we'll tell her about it when she's older. But of course, CNN was on all day long, and I'd walk through the room, and there would be, and my grandparents would be shouting very loudly at the screen, because this was complicated extra for me because I'm from a mixed family. I was born in Belgrade when it was Yugoslavia, but now it's Serbia, so my other passport is Serbian. But my grandmother is a Bosnian Muslim, and my grandfather was a Roman Catholic Slovene. My stepdad is Serbian Orthodox, so we celebrate Christmas twice. We have everybody in the family is something different. And I was raised with the notion of the other in that concept, ethnically, religiously, did not exist, because it didn't exist in the household. And the people who were coming after you were your own. The violence that ensued is still difficult to understand and sort of incomprehensible in a way, but it was based on the fanaticism of a few people who managed to feed those beliefs in a very appealing way to a mass of people, and and based on grudges that were long born, that it existed for a long time. But one of the things that was apparent in my family, and was apparent to me when I went to do the vampire research, is that a lot of the Balkans share traditions and rituals and beliefs that stand on a pagan base that predates Christianity and Islam and all that in the area. So it's more staggering because the commonalities are huge. This shared heritage is massive, and the conflict seems to circulate really. It seems to center really on just what particular empire happened to have you first. And, that's, I don't know if I answered the question. You're sort of kind of. I know, yeah, no. So I mean, I knew, to expand on that, I knew that I didn't want the war to be, I wanted it to be the backdrop of the book. because I didn't want to focus on the historical inventory that we were all getting through the 90s. And I mean, we were. You knew that, you know, this group did that to that group at this place at this time. And, you know, these were facts, and they'll be in textbooks someday, and I didn't want that. I wanted to tell human stories about people surviving through story. Because people did, and I had the opportunity to talk to people from a lot of sides who were in a lot of places during the war, some people who were in cities, some people who were in the army, some people who were, you know, in isolated places and got caught between two armies, and everybody, you know, everybody told stories about things that other than what happened, and that was, yeah, so but yeah, that's why there's no real place names or people in this book, because it would be bogging it down in this history that we all kind of think we know. So yeah, thank you.
Were you able to sort of relate all the mythologies that you come in contact with and see how they interacted at these times?
You know, oh, sorry. The question was about, was I able to, sorry.
Take the mythologies that you've learned about.
Yes.
And in some way interpret how they interacted at these serious times of conflict.
Yes. So the question was about, was I able to integrate all the mythologies that I'd learned about and interpret how they interacted during the time of conflict. I think that I was, you know, I think that in my in my still limited knowledge of mythology, I tried to you know, to do justice to all sides in their stories. So I hopefully it you know, through fable is how it came about in the end. So I'm thank you. Yes.
Only because no one's asked yet. What are you working on now?
That's a good question, and actually, the question that I will end with, because it's been the I don't want to keep you here long. So, I'm actually working on a second novel, and it took quite a while to get away from this one, because I had been working on it for so long, and it was sort of the source for it was like my whole life, and it's not like in the last 3 years I've gone through a similar amount of experience as I had in the first 23. So I was nervous that every sentence out of the next one would look like it was in this one, and I wouldn't be able to do anything new, you know. But I've finally moved on. It's a new novel, so I'm actually quite excited about it. Yes, sir. I'll answer your question too, because that was unfair to be like, I'm not taking any more. No.
Who do you read?
Who do I read? Well, my favorite book of all time is Mikhail Bulgakov's *The Master and Margarita*, which is a wonderful book. And if you haven't read it, buy it here tonight. It's just an incredible book, and magical realism, really, even though it's not from South America. I love, on that note, I love Garcia Marquez as well. Love in the Time of Cholera, which I called 1,000 Years of Cholera last night by mistake. Love in the Time of Cholera is a spectacular book. The Bridge on the Drina, Ivo Andrić, is a wonderful book, and he's sort of the Yugoslav Nobel laureate, and we're all very proud of him.
I'm sorry, was he Croatian?
Ivo Andrić?
Yeah.
Ivo Andrić grew up in, my understanding was that he was Bosnian.
No, he was a Croatian.
Oh, he was a Croatian? Okay.
Okay, he is a Croatian.
Okay. All right.
Just wanted to mention.
Okay.
But he was living in Belgrade. Of course, he was living.
He was living in Belgrade. That's right. But he had. My understanding is that he had some.
His father was and mother, and he grew up as a Croat.
Okay.
He was a Croatian.
Okay.
And I knew he wanted.
So the gentleman knows he was a Croatian. Where are you? I forgot. Oh, sorry. What do I read? I'm sorry. Isaac Dinesen. Or Karen Blixen, who wrote Out of Africa. I love her. I love Flannery O'Connor's short stories. They're sort of horrifying, and there's this like moment of violence, and then immediately followed by a moment of grace. It's just fantastic.
Margaret Drabble.
Sorry, what?
Margaret Drabble?
No, sorry.
Margaret Drabble.
But Raymond Chandler, Raymond Carver, Ernest Hemingway, who's just... So I'm all over the place. Yeah, I'm all over the place, kind of like that answer from me. But thank you so much for coming, and thank you for having me here, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.